Yes, good evening and welcome back to the Football Tribe DG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast. It's a Thursday night that we get to do this. One more day to the end, to the official end of the week, and we dive into the weekend. So, not that we are looking forward to it in the sense because it's not much football to look forward to in as far as the weekend in itself is concerned. But anyways, allow me to do the honors of checking out our audios, make sure everything is perfectly aligned for us to get started on this broadcast. I think we are good to go. I think we are good to go. Apologies on that background. I was just having our audios tested, but it looks like everything is set for us to get going. Where do we start from? Anyways, there's a lot of things we're going to be speaking about tonight, but among them is Manchester United's interest in a Chelsea and Liverpool target. We're going to find about more and about that in a bit. Then we'll look at the situation surrounding Victor Gyökeres. Yes, we did discuss it in the morning, but more context continues coming to light. Little bits of information that you pick up on here and there, and then they sort of give you another perspective around your analogy of regarding the whole situation and the player involved and the parties involved and that kind of thing. So in any case, let's keep our eyes peeled for that. So we'll be looking at that situation as well, among other things. But in the meantime, let me wait for the rest of you to join tonight's broadcast, and we'll get into the conversation. For those that have checked out Ebo State, our partners at Ebo State, I want to say thank you so much. Keep checking out what they have to offer, as well as more. Anyways. Okay. Anyway, that's the best solution. I will keep it at that. I'm waiting for you guys to join the broadcast, but it looks like we are set on that front. Let's work on a few things here as we wait for others to join the broadcasts. We'll be talking transfers, the latest in transfer news. We'll be speaking Manchester United. I know we spoke about Manchester United in the morning, excuse me, but there's no harm, continuing in that way. So yeah, we'll keep the conversation going in that same strength, as well as Liverpool. There's a video I promised you guys that I will be doing, but unfortunately I've not yet found the ample time to do that. Possibly, maybe we can shoot that video tomorrow and have it for you guys up on the channel regarding our perspective on Liverpool agreeing to pay up to 150 million euros for Florian Wirtz and the implications or the sort of impact that could have on the transfer window going forward for as we wait for it to reopen. Then among the other things that we'll be talking about tonight will be, of course, the FIFA Club World Cup. That one also does get underway in about 3 days time from now. In about 3 days time from now. So as we wait for others to join us, those are some of the things that we'll be looking at in tonight's broadcast, among other things. Basically that's that. Those will be our talking points, and of course anything that the rest of you guys will submit pertaining those topics, pertaining your favorite clubs. But I want to say thank you, Team India. I want to say thank you, Pressing Kosi. I want to say thank you, Amlen. I want to say thank you, Ahmed Scepter. I want to say thank you, Vanna. I want to say thank you. What's his name? Yes, Vanna there. I want to say H Gamer. Thank you, H Gamer. I want to say thank you to Zero Requiem. I want to say thank you to what's his name? I'm forgetting. It should be something like you can Tavuk. You can Tavuk. Thank you so much, Mario Momoto. We've missed you for the last couple of days. Thank you, Safa Ali. Thank you, Boss Royal, and everyone else, all the other usual suspects that we normally have on the Football Tribe UG channel, joining us in our different conversations, in as far as we get to sit here and discuss those things. Anyways, let's kick things off with Thomas Partey, because he's come out to speak about his future. We all know that his current contract with Arsenal, runs out at the end of this month. That's June the 30th. But Arsenal have been quite candid. They've been quite straightforward through manager Mikel Arteta saying that they will be interested, or they are actually in talks to extend his current contract with the club. And the expectation was that maybe by midway this month, they should have struck a deal already, so that feature is sorted out as soon as possible, or otherwise Arsenal may ought to move a bit faster in the transfer window to try and seek his replacement. So he was, of course, he's back home in his country. That's Ghana. He's on holiday. He's in his summer break. There've been pictures of him, doing some gym work, and he was wearing Jorginho's new shirt number. Of course, we know Jorginho joined Flamengo, so he was donning the Flamengo jersey, showing a bit of loyalty to his former partner in crime in that Arsenal midfield. So the Ghanaian international was speaking about his future, and he says there's a lot for him to consider. In that respect, he said that he has to consider his happiness, at what stage he is in his career, and then of course he has to consider his family, and but he recently turned 31, which becomes a factor really. And then when Arsenal also, as they offer him a new contract, part of the negotiations or that are being formulated around have everything to do with his availability as a player in regards to playing all games. In terms of selection, we know he struggled with injuries and that kind of thing. So that's one of the biggest sort of downsides ever since he joined Arsenal. So really, it becomes a key thing for Arsenal to entertain when they're having these negotiations or these discussions with him over contract renewal. But while speaking about his future at Arsenal, he was speaking to TV3 in Ghana. He said, I think the first thing is where you are happy, where you feel at home, and then what is your next objective? What do you want to achieve next? There are a lot of things you have to look. You have to look now where your family will be happy. These are things that you have to look at. When you are young, you just go anywhere. I can't decide anything. It's up to my agent and the club. Me, I just want to enjoy football. Now, Thomas Partey has already expressed his desire to stay in London. He loves the life in London. His family are well settled in there. And in any case, even if he were to leave Arsenal as a free agent, it wouldn't come as a surprise if he ended up at another London team. Of course, I do not think Tottenham would be an option, but we can never say never. It could be Chelsea, it could be Crystal Palace, it could be anywhere. So, hi Maria Momoto, how are you doing? How have you been lately? We've missed you in the last couple of broadcasts, but it's a pleasure always to have you back. So, and then of course there's interest always from Italian teams who we know are very, very common or synonymous with signing players of Thomas Partey's age profile. Kevin De Bruyne has just completed his medical and is now a new Napoli player at the age of 33 and that kind of thing. So it's not so far-fetched for us to think. In fact, there's always been interest from teams like Juventus, and he could go into he could easily walk into any of those gigantic Italian teams and be a mainstay and be a starter, pretty much like he is at Arsenal. So when it comes to his age, I think that's when it comes to Italy, that's not really much an issue. In the context of the Premier League and Arsenal particularly, it's a factor that they have to think about, which sort of determines how long length of the contract do they issue him. Earlier suggestions have been that it would be a 1-year contract with an option to extend it for a further year, while the player was being reported to be seeking out for an outright 2-year contract. So, but like I said, his injury history is one that sort of gets Arsenal thinking that what if we hand him a long contract and then he's suddenly out injured and he's not playing games and yet he's on these kinds of wages and that kind of thing. So there's everything to really think about for both Arsenal. And yet for the player on the other side, he equally has to think about his future. Like I said, as you grow older, for footballer, pretty much like in any other career, you start staring down the barrel of a retirement, and he would want to retire in a healthy financial situation. There's been interest from Saudi Pro League clubs, although he's chosen to stay within, and that kind of thing. So there's a lot for him to really consider as a player. But like I said, he's expressed that he is really happy in London. He would prefer to stay at Arsenal. In fact, he was saying he himself is an Arsenal fan. He was saying he's pretty much an Arsenal fan as well. So it shouldn't be. It's not like fans want him to stay and then he doesn't want the same. That kind of thing. When such things come up, or such situations come up, fans. Odin, hi Odin, good to have you back, Odin. Odin is growingly becoming one of our usual suspects on the channel. Odin Fred Home. I think I struggle to pronounce your second name, so I'll stick to Odin. But good to have you back on the broadcast on this episode, Odin. I hope you've had a wonderful day. I hope you're doing good. But basically, for me, that's the situation surrounding Thomas Partey, that he himself would love to stay at the club, provided that his agent and the club can agree to terms. He says he wants to concentrate on the footballing side of things. He wants to enjoy that. He wants to leave the agent to pretty much negotiate the rest of it all out for him. And he then just comes at the final minute to put pen on paper to say, this is what we agreed to. And usually when you have a player whose contract is running out, in some cases you have demands for, a signing bonus, in this kind of contract. So maybe those are the kinds of things that Arsenal are really thinking about. And then, of course, he did say that that my next move must balance ambition, family, and security. So pretty much like we highlighted about his age profile, staring down the barrel of retirement, what that should mean for maybe his next big contract as he stares down retirement. So that's what he speaks about, security. And then security also speaks to the length of a contract that is being given and things of that nature. So it's only human that you get to think about that. And he went on to say, I am an Arsenal fan too, but it's up to the club, my agent, and me to decide. So the ball is in his court. The ball is in Arsenal's court, but all he wants is to enjoy football. So Arsenal have already made the decision that they want to keep him. I think the players' side are equally open to that, very much open to that. Now the sticking point comes to the nitty-gritties, where you have to talk about things like the wages really, and the bonuses and things of that nature. So really, that's what is happening with Thomas Partey. But the sooner they resolve this situation, the better off Arsenal will be. And in any case, should they fail to come to terms, are pretty much similar to what we've had to witness with Leroy Sané and FC Bayern Munich, then Arsenal will have to move on to their preferred choices or to their second best alternatives or to potential replacements and that kind of thing. I know they already have that at the back of their minds, but for given the credence, given the importance of that kind of role in a team, being the central midfielder, and bearing in mind that you're going to have maybe a Martin Zubimendi walking in as a new player. We all know Mikel Merino had yet to impress overall while playing in that midfield role. The possibility of there being so many changes within that midfield increase by the day if Thomas Partey is not yet to agree to a contract. So that means then that if he's not going to be agreeing to a new contract, then you ought to run out there in the market and sort your business with whatever chosen candidate you may have for a replacement for him. And then so that when you start pre-season, he's already there with you to gel this guy with this team, and you get to assess the player. Does he match the physical needs, the needs physically? Can he really compete? Or you're going to have to rethink your strategy and say maybe for the start, I will have to play Declan Rice as the number 6 alongside Mikel Merino and Martin Odegaard for the start of the season, as we ease in Martin Zubimendi in that kind of role as the 6, and then Declan Rice as an 8, and those kinds of things. Or is it going to be this whole new other player that we are replacing Thomas Partey with? So there's a lot of things that go into consideration, or that will have to go into consideration for Arsenal to decide on Partey's future as soon as possible. And I think they are really, really working towards that, although it's seemingly taking much longer than we had hoped or than we desire ourselves. So, but at least that is there. Then Thomas Frank has officially joined Tottenham Hotspurs. That has been announced. He has joined Tottenham Hotspurs as a replacement for Ange Postecoglou. Quite a brilliant news there. Yes, there've been questions over his credentials, his lack of experience, especially with European football. But like I said, he's not the first manager to be tossed into the deep end. In any case, I always look to the example of Mikel Arteta, who had zero managerial experience beyond being an assistant to Pep Guardiola when he walked into the Arsenal doors. And by any measure of scale, in regards to measuring up to those high standards, I think he's done perfectly well. He's only missing, what he is missing is that icing on the cake is to win the major trophies. But in as far as dealing with the pressure of managing a team the caliber of Arsenal, I think he's done tremendously well. And a part of me gets to think that Thomas Frank will do well at Tottenham Hotspurs. He's not a manager that's too complicated. He doesn't overthink the game really. He's quite a very, very adaptive manager, but he also walks into a Tottenham environment that is new to him, that many managers that have come before him have had issues with, in terms of the mentality around the club, in terms of their lack of desire to win major things. And that's why maybe perhaps it's taken them as many as 17 years to win a major trophy since 2008, and then coming back to win the UEFA Europa League this season or 2025. So you look at that kind of context really and the broader situation. The other day we did have Kavinsky, a Tottenham Hotspur fan, who was full of criticism for the Tottenham chairman, that's Danny Levy, saying that he's more concerned with making the money. Yes, it is a business, but they should be ambitious enough to go and invest in players that try to win you trophies. In that context, we spoke about him sacking Jose Mourinho back in 2019, just 6 days prior to the kickoff to the final of the EFL Cup. So, and that kind of thing against Man City. So there's mentality issues there to think about. Guys, if you're just joining us, please do me the absolute honor and click on that like button for our broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel if you're new. Do not hesitate to engage with us and let us know where you're joining us from this night. So there's a lot of issues around there. Of course, when it comes to player investment, Tottenham have done a fair bit of that. When you invest in players like James Maddison, Dominic Solanke, who was a record transfer for them in the region of about £65 million, signing him from AFC Bournemouth prior to the start of last season. So there's been a bit of investment, but you get the feeling that they can do more to get themselves from where they are to the next level, and that would require more investment. Mauricio Pochettino had tried to go about it in a different way, signing sort of averagely or lesser known players, and he built a team. You all remember that team built the team around Hurricane and Son Heung-min, the likes of Dele Alli and that kind of thing. They went all in to try and invest in him, quite with Tunkai and Dobele, but that we all know did not bear the fruits that they had hoped it would bear, and things of that nature. But that notwithstanding, teams do make losses on big player signings, and they go back and attack the market. When you look at examples like Manchester United, how many players have they signed and things have not worked out for them, and they've had to go back in the market and do more business. We all know what's happened around Jadon Sancho. We know what's happened around Anthony. We all know what is happening around Rasmus Hojlund and Joshua Zirkzee and things of that nature. When you go to Man City, remember when they signed the goalkeeper in Claudio Bravo from Barcelona, it did not work out. Pep Guardiola went out and signed Ederson Morales. Those kinds of things are bound to happen, and Tottenham need to be progressive and look at them that way. But Thomas Frank is now the new manager of Tottenham Hotspurs, making the switch from the GTEC Stadium at Brentford to North London. Yeah, welcome to the rivalry between Tottenham Hotspurs and Arsenal. Will he be a success? Only time can tell, but at least he's a manager from within the Premier League. So the league in itself is not going to be new to him. It's not like he's going to assess his opponents any different. He only has to look inwards in assessing the kind of squad that he is inheriting from Ange Postecoglou. He needs to assess where they need to quickly reinvest or improve, and then perhaps put forward those suggestions to Daniel Levy and the team charged with doing the transfer business to go ahead and make things happen for him as they look forward to next season, on the back of a very disappointing season as far as the Premier League is concerned, because they finished 17th on the league log, while it was a success on the European scene because they did win the Europa League title, beating United by 1-0. So, and by virtue of that fact, they did qualify for the UEFA Champions League, so they're going to be playing UEFA Champions League football. All that means more money that will be coming into the club, and that means that if it is true, it does demand any form of investment, then he really does deserve it, and he couldn't have come at a better time. One, the best thing that is going to happen for Thomas Frank is, one, he comes in on the back of a very, very horrible season by all counts and measures in the Premier League by all standards. Now, the only way it can get worse if they eventually get relegated, which I do not think they will. So even if he gets them from 17th to a 10th place finish, it will look as some form of success. Not that it would where Tottenham would rather finish, but from onlookers or even the fans, they'll say, okay, he's taken us from 17th to 10th, and maybe if we give him another season, we'll go from 10th and maybe to 50th and that kind of thing. So, or even 4th. So if you look at it in that context, I think he gets himself a bit of a clean slate in one or the other. The biggest pressure will come when they go to the UEFA Champions League, where he himself is a novice. But again, that will depend on the kind of profile of players that he will have at his disposal to deploy when it comes to UEFA Champions League football. But I think they will go ahead to back him. And speaking of backing him, this then rolls the dice for Manchester United over that Brandon Mbeumo move. We were speaking about this very thing, I think, was it this morning or yesterday? I do not remember perfectly well, but we were speaking about it, and I was saying, once this move is announced, it's not remote for a manager to be linked with any of his former players in Mbeumo. Maybe Yuan Wissa, or Visa, depending on how you pronounce it. Of course, they've already lost Mark Flecken, who has gone to Bayer Leverkusen, and they did replace him with Kelleher, so you can't poach their goalkeeper really. But I mean, he can look back to them, maybe a Christian Nogard in there and says, come play for me at Tottenham Hotspur. So do not be surprised if all of a sudden he gets started being linked with a move to some of his former players at Brentford. In any case, Tottenham had already been linked. Tottenham already had interest in signing Brian Mbeumo alongside the likes of Newcastle, Chelsea, and Arsenal. But then the players came out to say he would prefer a move to Manchester United, and that's how United went in to make the first bid that was turned down. But ever since then, not much more has been done to get that deal done. So I get the feeling that Thomas Frank moving to Tottenham could sort of roll the dice in the mix of that transfer saga. But let's wait and see how that will transpire in the course of this summer. Anyways, let's move away from Danny Levy and Thomas Frank being welcomed into the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and make the switch to Manchester United, because Manchester United have expressed interest in signing Hugo Ekitike from Eintracht Frankfurt. Now, like I've said time and again, they are already other clubs that are interested in signing the 22-year-old French striker, who, by the way, does turn 23 on June the 20th. Yes, he does turn 23 this month. So, but that in itself isn't an issue, if I'm being honest. But Manchester United have expressed interest in signing Hugo Ekitike. And this was earlier on revealed by Florian Plettenberg, who works with Sky German, saying Manchester United have now officially entered the race for Hugo Ekitike. Man United made contact with Eintracht Frankfurt within the last 48 hours, expressed concrete interest, and gathered all relevant information. Liverpool, Chelsea remain in the race, and now Man United are in as well. Price tag is 100 million euros. There's not been any questions or quorums whatsoever over his price tag to being set at the tune of 100 million euros. Now, you either pay that or you walk away. Just on deadline day, that's on Tuesday, before the early transfer window that was set between June 1st and 10th closed out, Chelsea were trying to sign the player. And of course, they could not, agree to terms with Eintracht Frankfurt. And reports do indicate that they will continue to pursue him even during or after the course of the FIFA Club World Cup. Now, Manchester United throwing their hat in the ring does sort of increase the pressure on the side of Chelsea, on the side of Liverpool, all who are equally interested in signing him. Now, Liverpool have sort of confirmed, according to inside sources, that Darwin Núñez is up for sale. They would want to let him go and find a new chapter elsewhere. And their top target for a replacement is none other than Hugo Ekitike, but also they do have Benjamin Sesko on their shortlist. So Man United entering this race, like I keep saying, United, regardless of where we all think they are financially or otherwise, in regards to stature, being out of Europe and everything within that respect, they are still a big club. They are still capable of attracting big players, and they still can, move a few pieces around here and there financially and make this happen. And that's why, even when they've had reports, and perhaps it's been told to them as well, that taking Hugo Ekitike could cost and maybe a fee in the region of 100 million euros, they are still in it. They are still saying we are interested. So I think that's going to be quite an interesting saga. And the reason as to why I think Eintracht Frankfurt won't back down on their request or on their demands for the 100 million euros is because of what we've witnessed with Bayer Leverkusen when it came to negotiations with Liverpool over the transfer of Florian Wirtz. They are not backing down over the valuation of 150 million euros for the 22-year-old. Now, we're talking about a player whose goal contribution was what? 22 last season, 10 goals and 12 assists in the Bundesliga. Now, here we are also comparing cards with Hugo Ekitike, a striker who scored 15 goals and provided 8 assists, giving him a goal contribution of 23. I mean, he's within the same age profile, as Florian Wirtz. So what's not to say that he does qualify to command the fee that Eintracht Frankfurt are asking for. Then the other thing that we widely discussed on this channel has to do with the lack of options in the transfer market when it comes to strikers. Look at this way. If you went out there in the market for a defender, a midfielder, a winger, there's plenty of options. There's plenty of options. That's why in the context of Bayern Munich, when we're speaking about a left winger, we've talked of names like Nico Williams, Bradley Bacola, Rafael Leao, Cody Gakpo, Kawu Mitoma, as a list of 5 people that they could potentially sign for a replacement of Leroy Sané, who agreed to join Galatasaray on a 3-year contract as a free agent. However, he is going to return to Bayern Munich and be part of their FIFA Club World Cup squad and will play for them until June the 30th. So that means if they qualify for maybe the round of 16 or even the quarterfinals, he won't be part of the quarterfinals. So, and then after that, he will leave the club and go to his new home. That's Galatasaray. So when you look at those numbers, there are plenty of options for anybody that wants to sign a winger. But when you compare that with the number of strikers that are available on the market, top strikers, again, you look at names like Victor Gyökeres, who I think actually has the best numbers. You look at Benjamin Sesko, you look at Hugo Ekitike, you look at Dusan Vlahovic, you look at Jonathan David, who is a free agent from Lille, and who else? Because Alexander Isak is not to be touched at Newcastle, is not even a consideration. But Erling Haaland is not a consideration for Man City. When you look at what's his name? Kylian Mbappe at Real Madrid is not an option. Robert Lewandowski is not, moving a finger to leave Barcelona anytime soon. So you look at that striking, the options available of strikers on the market, and Liam Delap has already made the move to Chelsea. Bony Mbeumo, who is a hybrid of a striker, can also play at the wing, but across literally the entire front three is another hot cake. So because of the limited options on the market in as far as strikers are concerned, that's why you're having all these teams practically gunning for the same players in any case. So when you speak about Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, Man United, in terms of the gigantic teams at the moment in the Premier League that are looking to sign strikers, maybe the other name I forget to add to that list is Victor Osimhen. Now, yes, we add Victor Osimhen. So when you look at their shortlists for targets of strikers, they're featuring the same names. The only question we have is who will end where eventually. Now, if things were to go under ideal circumstances, I would say maybe Benjamin Sesko ends up at Arsenal, Hugo Ekitike ends up at either of Chelsea or Liverpool, and then Man United end up with either Victor Osimhen or Victor Gyökeres, one of those two, and then Juventus get the other because they are also into the market for a striker. Napoli are into the market for a striker, and among their options they are looking at is Jonathan David, but also they've inquired about the availability of Rasmus Højlund from Manchester United. So again, and it's not like Rasmus Højlund's numbers at Manchester United are very encouraging for any suitors. The only thing encouraging about him is that he's done it before in Italy, so you can bet on him that he can do it again. And then the other thing is his age. He's still only 22 years of age. So we've heard about rumors, Manchester United considering a swap deal plus cash for Victor Osimhen with Joshua Zirkzee, who they only signed last summer from Bologna. So he's just turned 24 years of age. So, and he did not have a good start to his English football career in that sense. So the numbers are not really many there, but Manchester United have indeed entered the race to try and sign Hugo Ekitike from Eintracht Frankfurt, but they are also linked with the move for Victor Gyökeres, who we've spoken about at great length. Now, the other new name that is suddenly making the rounds in the city of Manchester in respect to Manchester United is Victor Osimhen, who we also did discuss the other night quite at length wondering why he turned down 850 grand a week to make the move to Eintracht, and we all had our own opinions to say for people that were on with us for that chat. But the thing about Victor Osimhen to Manchester United, if indeed he is to make the switch from Napoli, first of all, Manchester United will have to agree to pay his release clause, which is to the tune of 70 million euros, which, according to Napoli or sources in Italy, they say that's not negotiable, or it's unnegotiable, really. Guys, I don't know if I'm missing any chats, but I hope not. Anyway, so that's the release clause, up to 75 million euros, which Al Hilal were willing to pay. They just couldn't convince the player to join them. Theo Hernandez was the other player they couldn't convince to join them. But if Victor Osimhen is to go to Manchester United, one, he has to want to go to Manchester United. That's the first thing. He has to want to go there. Two, he has to be willing to take a pay cut on his wages. Like I said, last summer, Chelsea wanted to sign him, but the parting point was his wage demands. Napoli want to take him off their wage bill. His wages are quite high, in the realm or in the region of 12 million euros as net pay per season. And again, I think in the morning or the other night, we spoke about how Manchester United are trying to restructure their wage bill. That's why they are trying to get rid of players like Marcus Rashford, who are on really, really high wages. Players like Casemiro, players like Jadon Sancho. Of course, they are on high wages, but they're also not delivering. They're not coming good on the pitch, really, in terms of delivery. So that is also a factor. But he would have to take a wage cut. So, and we're not saying maybe it goes from 300 grand a week or 350 grand a week, and then suddenly he drops to 100K. No. Peter Parker, hi bro, what's up? How are you doing? How has been your day? It's a pleasure to have you back, Peter Parker, one of our usual suspects that does support what we do on this channel. But thank you so much. We do appreciate you, Peter Parker, for your kindness in supporting what we do here. So he would say, let's say, have to take maybe to agree to take about 250 grand a week, and he settles for that, or maybe even 280, things of that nature. So he has to want to come to Man United. He has to be willing to maybe earn a bit lesser than he's currently earning. However, he can still earn more than what he's earning at Napoli. If he does agree to go to Galatasaray, who are really, really interested, they put an offer for him on table in the region of about 15 million euros in net pay. And he was there last season on loan. He did quite tremendously well. So he knows the league. He's already proven himself there. It's not like they're going to be taking a gamble on him. They already know what he's capable of, or what he did deliver for them last season. So for them, it will not be a gamble as much as it will be maybe from a Man United or any other club that does sign him. But again, over the years, his numbers have spoken for themselves. In 2023, when Napoli were winning the Scudetto, he had a tally of about, I think, 26 goals and about 4 assists that season. Quite a tremendous season, really. So that's the situation around strikers. We all know who is interested in who in regards of strikers, but that's because the options are quite limited on the market. In fact, there have been some reports seeping out of Italy. I do not know whether it is based on present tense or it is based on previous interest that Arsenal could make a move for Dusan Vlahovic, but also Arsenal do remain interested in signing Oli Watkins, who, by the way, himself does turn 30, but his numbers are quite impressive. I think last season he scored 16 Premier League goals and provided about 8 assists. That's a 24 goal involvement, really, which would be a good return on investment. But for Oli Watkins, I do not think it would have to be any issue over his personal terms of wages or wage demands. The only issue will be about what Arsenal value him at, and then what Aston Villa value him at, if the two clubs were to sit on a table and try to do a deal. I've said it here before that if Arsenal want to go from that stage where they are to the next stage, which is finishing number 2 in the Premier League and going to the next stage where they win the title, they need to sign more than one striker. So if they are going to sign Benjamin Sesko, yes, you have Kai Havertz returning in good shape of form. But based on what we did witness last season with how injuries troubled Arsenal, I would be considering going for Oli Watkins as well. He's Premier League proven. He's a ready product. And then what that helps you is that it helps you take pressure off Benjamin Sesko, who is still young, to be honest, only 22 years of age, who may come into a new league. You could have signed quite expensively or for a very high fee. And then he has all this media buzzing in his ears, and suddenly all the pressure or weight of scoring, being Arsenal's target man, and the demand for him to score 20 plus goals in the league on him. You can sort of ease that pressure off him and ease him into his life in the Premier League by signing a player like Oli Watkins, who will be turning 30, put him on a 3-year contract with an option to extend for a further year. If you can sign him for 40-45 million pounds, I think that would be a good deal, really. It would be a good, investment. So that gives you options. That gives you options to rotate your players, to give players a bit of rest. For example, you know that my striker will play 60 minutes, and then I have another striker to go on for the last 30 minutes, and they're really sharp. I have midweek football every other single week with the UEFA Champions League new format. So, and you get to rotate your players. Then you play them in the Champions League, and then you're not worried about one being maybe a little too tired for the weekend's game, because then you can start the one that started off the bench in the previous game, and that kind of thing. So Arsenal do need options. Pretty much any other team. I always looked at the example of Liverpool. That look at them. They have a player like Darwin Núñez, who is arguably their striker, out and outright striker. But look at the options they have up front: Cody Gakpo, Luis Diaz, Diego Jota, Mohamed Salah. All those players turning up, and then Harvey Elliott in those, number kind of 10 goals, and then McAllister chipping in with the goals. But when you look at that front line, they have options. They had Federico Chiesa, So you start, let's say, with Luis Diaz, Mohamed Salah, and who on the other side of the wings? Let's say Cody Gakpo, and then you pull Luis Diaz out, and comes on Diego Jota, or comes on Darwin Núñez. You pull off Cody Gakpo, and Jota comes in. And that kind of thing. So you pull on Salah in the 80th minute, and Chiesa comes in for the last 10-15 minutes of the game. So they really had the numbers. Look at Chelsea. Chelsea have signed so many players. Now, of course, Chelsea have had their issues that not all their investments are paid off, because right now they've not been able to take players like Raheem Sterling, players like João Felix, players like Ben Chilwell, Axel Disasi, Wesley Fofana, that's due to injury, but there's a good number of players, the goalkeeper Petrovic, that they've not been able to take with their squad for the FIFA Club World Cup, but they do have options. When you look at that front line for Chelsea, of course they want strikers, but they've already signed Liam Delap. You have Nicholas Jackson. They are aiming to bring in Hugo Ekitike. Those would be 3 strikers, Then you look at their wings. You have Pedro Neto. You have Noni Madueke. You have a Cole Palmer who can play wherever you want him to play across that front line. Of course, not as a striker, but you could easily play him as a 4th striker. You have all those kinds of players. You have a forgotten Mukalo Mudryk because of his anti-doping, investigations that have put him on provisional suspension to the extent that his shirt number 10 has been ripped off him and given to Cole Palmer. But Chelsea look to sign more players. They've already signed Giovanni Quenda, who, of course, he will remain on loan at Sporting Lisbon. But you look at all the players they are linked with, they are trying to sign Jamie Gittins, So they have numbers. And what numbers allow you is you have a good squad depth. You get to rotate your players. You do not have to overwhelm players with minutes. When you look at Arsenal for the last 3 seasons, and the reason as to why they suffered so many injuries last season, particularly, I think because of the previous 2 seasons in which they had come second, they had relied on the same players to play literally every minute. Of course, David Raya coming in the second season, but let's ignore the goalkeepers a little bit. But You had William Saliba, Gabriel Magalhaes. That's never changing. Ben White, not changing. Usually at left back, that's when they took things here a bit here and there. Zichenko, Takahiro Tomiyasu, and Kian Tierney once in a while, and things like that. You look at the midfield, it was Thomas Partey, it was Martin Odegaard, Declan Rice having come in at the start of the 2023-2024 season. And you look at Bukayo Saka, Gabriel Martinelli, they were the same figures, Kai Havertz came at the start of 2023-2024, same figure, really. So they had played a lot of minutes, and at some point it was expected that they would suffer those kinds of injuries. How many hamstring injuries did they suffer last season? William Saliba, Gabriel Magalhaes, Bukayo Saka. There were fears at the tail end of the season that Leandro Trossard had, that kind of irritating feeling in his hamstring in the left. And yet you compare those injuries to seasons gone by. They were not getting those injuries. But what do you think is the cause of that? I think partly is because of so many minutes they've had to play without players being rotated out. Why? Because their options are limited. So they need to have as many bodies as they can, and not just bodies, but quality players within that dressing room if they are going to go from being competitors to eventual champions. So I think that's what is required of the Gunners to do. Then what else have we really missed? I think we've tackled it all in respect to Manchester United, in respect to Arsenal, in respect to Thomas Partey, in respect to Thomas Frank, like I did highlight in the course of that justification that Leroy Sané has made the switch to Galatasaray, put pen to paper on a 3-year contract. Then Bayern Munich are really interested in signing. They are really interested in signing Nico Williams as their preferential replacement. Of course, at the top of that list, like I told you guys yesterday, is Bradley Barcola, but they do acknowledge that a deal for Bradley Barcola could be a difficult one, seeing that PSG really want to keep the player. And that's why they've moved on to Nico Williams, who is become sort of the main headline in the last couple of days in regards to their pursuit for a winger. But Lafariao is the other on that shortlist, among others. So, but again, the sticking point, like we again reiterated on this channel, is to do with his wages and his wage demands. That's a little bit high, really, for a player of his profile. Then this is according again to Florian Plettenberg, who says Bayer Leverkusen expect Florian Wirtz's move to Liverpool to be finalized next week, including the medical, which is scheduled to take place next week at the latest. So Wirtz are currently on holiday. So there you have it, Liverpool fans. I know there's a little bit of anxiety on you told us they agreed to a fee. What's pending? Why is he not making the trip for the medical? Or why isn't the deal getting done? It will get done. It will get done. You best update on that, unless he fails the medical, which I do not think he will fail, really. But best believe that that deal will happen for you Liverpool fans. And then Milos Kakes is the other that is in the pipeline, close to being completed from FC Bournemouth to Liverpool. FC Bournemouth have already signed a replacement in Adrian Trafford from Stade Rennes there in France as a replacement for him. So really do expect that deal to go through. Then, so let's look at the latest in as far as the transfer gossip is concerned, because the rumor mill does not stop. For example, Liverpool are considering a move for Bradley Barcola. I mean, we could be seated here and Liverpool have a 500 million pound war chest in terms of transfer fees to spend. Of course, not in one bulk of cash, but at least in terms of budgetary terms, they could be having that. because they're going for big, expensive players. They're being intentional. They are strengthening at a time when they're good, you know. So, according to reports, this is according to the Sun, and they're not the first to report about it. Liverpool are set to swap for Paris Saint-Germain's 22-year-old French forward Bradley Barcola, even after completing a deal for Bayer Leverkusen's German attacker Florian Wirtz. And then both players are 22 years of age. Now you can look at the age profile. Then Aston Villa, Newcastle, and Tottenham are monitoring developments with Jordan Sancho after the England wingers return to Manchester United following his loan spell from Chelsea. Then Everton and Newcastle are leading the rest to sign England forward Jack Grealish from Manchester City this summer, according to Football Insider. While Bayer Leverkusen are considering a move for Liverpool defender Jarell Quasha, 22 years of age. We spoke about that one this morning and again yesterday. While Uruguayan striker Darwin Núñez is likely to leave Liverpool, not likely. Liverpool want him to leave, whether they can find a suitor that meets their demands in terms of transfer fees, but also Darwin Núñez being interested in making that move, then they will definitely move him on. But at least there's interest from Al Hilal, whether the player, although it's been reported that his preference would be to stay within Europe, and that would be his preference. But then, yes, that would be his preference. Whether he gets his wish, that remains to be seen. Whether he eventually gets his wish, that remains to be seen. You know, and then there's of course we've spoken about Leroy Sané. We've spoken about Nico Williams to Bayern Munich. We've spoken about who else? The Chelsea goalkeeper Petrovic, who was not included in their squad for the FIFA Club World Cup, and as he looks to find, you know, a move away from Chelsea, having spent last season on loan at Strasbourg alongside Andre Santos. Andre Santos was included in that Chelsea squad for the FIFA Club World Cup. We've spoken about Manchester City's signings, Tijani Reinders, Ryan Ashnory, Ryan Cheki, and then Marcus Bentinelli. I mean, all for less than 120 million euros. And sorry, 120 million pounds. And yet Liverpool are spending all that on a single player. So either Man City are really smart with the way, I think they are really smart with the way they do business. Do they buy some players quite expensively? That's true. And when you look at Josh Kovadiol, when you go back to Jack Grealish, some of those deals were quite expensive. But look at a player like Omar Mamouche, who, by the way, after just 17 games, has scored 15 goals for Eintracht Frankfurt and had about 10 assists. And they managed to land him for about 59 million pounds. So they really have a knack for doing smart business. So when you look at what they've spent to acquire those 4 players, it's quite impressive, to say the least. But that's Man City for you, and their rebuild looks to be taking good shape considerably well, really. So that's they're happening. Then it's official. Brighton and Hove Albion have assigned Charalampos Kostolas, who joins from Olympiacos for about 35 million euros with 2 unexpected add-ons. Did put pen to paper on a 5-year contract. Guys, forgive my mispronunciation of these Greek names. I'm not accustomed to them really. Not one bit. Some of the names I tend to struggle with are Greek names, Russian names, Polish names, or people from Poland. I mean, I do remember a player who was at Borussia Dortmund called Braszkowski. If you read that name, I mean, if you're reading it for the first time, you would clearly bear with me. And then Man City did agree to sign Saver Nepa or Nepan there, and from Norway, and they will loan him out. But it's the other deal that, you know, has already gone through. And then Olympic Marseille and have added Copenhagen 19-year-old winger Ronny Badji, Ronny Badji to their shortlist. Safa Ali. Hi, Safa Ali. How are you doing? How is Turkey? Any news around Fenerbahce? I know you guys have missed out on the signing of Leroy Sané, who has chosen to go to your rivals in Galatasaray. I do not know where that leaves Jose Mourinho's plans going into the summer. But and also, is there any updates? You say I'm fine, bro. How? But I'm also doing well. I'm also doing all right. Thanks for asking. Also, if there's anything concrete regarding Victor Osimhen and Galatasaray, are they making any progress? I know those negotiations between Victor Osimhen's camp and Galatasaray are ongoing. You can give us an update from domestic sources if you had anything around those players. You say I was saddened by Leroy Sané. I was saddened by Leroy Sané's arrival, but it was a very good transfer for Galatasaray. Yes, indeed, because they are getting him on a free transfer. They're going to pay him good wages. Of course, the reported fee is about he's going to be earning about 9 million euros per season in net fee, and then he will be getting another 3 million euros in loyalty payments or bonuses. So I think it's a very, very good deal. Now, I'm here imagining Galatasaray, by the way, are trying to sign a Manchester City midfielder, Ilkay Gundogan. They are trying to sign Ilkay Gundogan. Fenerbahce offered 15 million euros salary, but did not accept. Okay, yeah, he turned that offer down and favored a move to your rivals in Galatasaray. But Galatasaray are trying to sign Ilkay Gundogan from Manchester City. They've thrown their hat in the ring for Victor Osimhen, like we stressed before on this channel and even during the course of this broadcast. But it looks like they want to quite assemble the team that is going to make them a powerhouse, not just domestically, but also on the European continent, because they're looking to bring in players with experience. If you can't get Victor Osimhen, you guarantee goals coming in. You get Leroy Sané, that's experience right there at 29 years of age. If you are to get Ilkay Gundogan, you get another leader, another winner in your dressing room. And I think it wouldn't stop there. They would still try and go for more. So really, Adis Tahivrovic, he says Ajax. Are you from Ajax? Is that what you're trying to tell us? That from Ajax, Netherlands? So really, but let's wait and see what Fenerbahce also get to do in the transfer market to improve their options. Yes, Adis says he's from Ajax Holland. How is that place? How is everything there? Is Ajax the team that you support? By the way, if indeed it is Ajax that you do support, give us an update if you know anything on the ground based on local media regarding Arsenal and Chelsea's interest in Jorel Hato from Ajax, the 19-year-old left back / center back. Give us an update at this. Safa Ali say, I don't want Ilkay Gundogan to come to Turkey because he is old. He will end up like Ozil. Okay, that's that. You do not want him to come to Turkey because he will end up like Mesut Ozil. Safa Ali, what was the ending story of Mesut Ozil? Of course, we know he retired from football and then went to the gym and sort of became this bodybuilder of some sort and put on quite the muscles and turned into a sort of a mini Hulk, for lack of a better word. Adis says, no, I live in Rotterdam. Oh, you live in Rotterdam. So what local team do you support in Netherlands? Adis, please let us know. Definitely, bro. That's Safa Ali. Adis, kindly like the broadcast, but also let us know what team you pay allegiance to in as far as the Dutch Eredivisie is concerned. Good evening, Pressing Kosi. How are you doing, my brother? Shout outs to you, special shout outs to you, my friend. You've done us really proud, sparing a moment to join us every single night and sometimes in the morning whenever you can. Much appreciated for the love and support, really. I do not take it for granted. So we are waiting for this to inform us on whether he does have a local team support in the Dutch Eredivisie, but we've pretty much discussed it all in regards to, you say, Safari says, let me say this about Mesut Ozil. He came to Fenerbahce, but he was unsuccessful in Europe, but he is a very, very important football player. And that's true. I think he was a very, very well-respected player overall. It was a bit unfortunate for me, the way he had to leave Arsenal. I always want players that have been good at Arsenal to live on good terms, to live in respectable terms. I remember when what's his name? Alore Koscielny left Arsenal to join Bordeaux, and they did an unveiling where he took off and he put on a Bordeaux jersey, and then on top of it, he wore an Arsenal jersey. And then as part of his unveiling, he took off the Arsenal jersey and put it in the bin instead of putting it on a hanger and hanging it on the side. I think that would have made much more sense or communicated better. But anyway, we do not know at what times he left Arsenal, so maybe he could have been pissed off by the time he got the move. So it is what it is. But I would always prefer that players move on from their clubs, as you know, in some form of respect, given the contributions that they would have made to the previous team. One day, Mike Owen was speaking about, he was explaining a situation of understanding what Trent Alexander-Arnold must have felt in the wake of him being booed, as you know, as his Liverpool career came to an end. And he said he played there. You know, he was a legend. He's a legend, a Liverpool legend. But he does understand the feeling, because he did make the move to Newcastle when he returned from Spain. He did make a move to Newcastle, and then after Newcastle got relegated, I think in around 2009 or after 2009-2010 season, he then makes the switch to join Manchester United, who we all know are arch rivals of Liverpool, and that one did not go unnoticed. It didn't go down well. Who do you support in the Club World Cup? That's Safa Ali asking. I'm going to answer that in a bit. What's happening in Lisbon? I'm hearing a drama is happening with the release of Victor Gyökeres. Now, again, Victor Gyökeres was our topic this morning, but there's no problem revisiting the topic. Now, what we are getting is that the player, of course, who did turn 27 just recently, had a gentleman's agreement with his bosses and his agents at Sporting Lisbon to say that at the end of the season, he would be permitted to leave for a fee lesser than his current release clause, which is believed to be 100 million euros. So, you know, after the 2023-2024 season, which was his debut season in Portugal, there were offers for him. There were clubs clamoring for his signature, but he had that release clause of 100 million euros, and his potential suitors at the time did not. Safa Ali says, "My friend, I have to go now. I will study. I hope I'll come tomorrow." Thank you so much, Safa Ali. We wish you the best of luck in your studies. But thank you for being part of tonight's broadcast, and thank you for your contribution towards supporting what we do and being part of the whole conversation at large. Much appreciated. See you later. So I think suitors then were off put by the asking fee of 100 million euros, and they said maybe we'll try again next time. So the player, as a sign of loyalty, he decided to stay with Sporting Lisbon, or Sporting CP, as it is often referred to, that he will stay for the 2024-2025 season. And that's sort of, again, these are negotiations that come not contractually on paper, but in a gentleman's agreement to say, okay, if I do this, you will do that. So that's pretty much what they discussed. And according to the players' camp, that's Victor Gyökeres' camp, they did agree to let him out if potential suitors were willing to offer at least 65 to 70 million euros. Now, that means the release clause was brought down from 100 million euros. Now, what the player has been getting, and again, we did discuss this question, somebody was asking, why are big teams not going after Victor Gyökeres when it is being reported that he's slightly cheaper? As, of course, our arguments for part of that, or part of our arguments to answer that question, did speak to his style of play and so many other things. But also now, what we are hearing is that his suitors are being told a significantly higher fee than what he agreed with the club, along with his agents, would be let go of if potential suitors came this summer. Now, clubs like Arsenal, clubs like Manchester United, clubs like Chelsea, clubs like Juventus have all inquired about conditions of a potential deal for the Swedish international. Now, it's not every day, almost unthinkable, that you get a club, a European top club would be willing to pay maybe 100 euros for a player that is turned 27 and they were still in the Portuguese league. It's not. I do not think it's been heard of before. Usually, it's younger players that command the higher fees, the likes of Enzo Fernandez when he was making the switch from Benfica. I think in January 2023, yes, after the World Cup, going to Chelsea for 121 million euros, among others that have made the switch. You remember João Felix from Benfica to Atletico Madrid, going for as high as about 120 million euros. So when a player has reached that age of 25, 27, they usually do not command that higher a fee, even when they are that good. So with that context in mind, that's how the player and the club agreed to lessen his release clause. Now, what the players' camp apparently has come to learn is that his potential suitors are being told a fee that is higher than what they agreed upon in that gentleman's agreement. So apparently, suitors are being told that it would cost them anywhere around 80 to 85 million euros, or even 90, depending. And that is contrary to what the player agreed on with the club in that gentleman's agreement. It's significantly higher from the reported 65 to 70 million euros that has been widely reported, which with the 65 being the expected guaranteed payment and the other 5 in add-ons. Guys, please like the broadcast, but also if you're new, please consider subscribing to the channel. Much appreciated. So that's the context around that situation. And the club, Victor Gyökeres was speaking today, and he said he won't comment much, but he will speak at the right time. But he's gone on to, delete some posts or certain things connecting him with Sporting Lisbon on his Instagram. We've had things of that nature. So while he was speaking today, he said there is a lot of talk at the moment. Most of it is false. I will speak when the time is right. Now, of course, even the Sporting Lisbon president came out to, say that, it's the players' agents trying to, spread false news and things of that nature, and that kind of thing. But at least those are the reports that we are getting, that the player is indeed furious with Sporting Lisbon over that kind of situation. Now, the challenge with gentlemen's agreements is that they are not, in dry ink on paper, so they are not legally enforceable, or especially when it comes to football. People always go back on their word. I do not know if you guys are fans of watching series, but if you ever did watch the series called Suits, there's an episode, maybe in season 2 or 3, where Rachel Zane goes back to Lewis. He had an agreement when she was falsely accused of leaking, farm documents to one of their opponents, and she was falsely accused and fired. Now, as part of her conditions to come back, it was discussed that she will get a 10% pay rise, but also the firm agrees to pay for law school when she chooses to go to law school. Now, the time comes for her to go to law school, and then that agreement was not on paper. It was a gentleman's agreement based on a discussion she had with Louis Leeds. Now, that's the perfect example. If any of you has watched series or Suits in particular, that's the perfect example that I can give you in regards to a gentleman's agreement, that it's not enforceable to the letter because it's not written on paper. So that's why clubs usually go back on their word. We've had something similar with regards to Benjamin Sesko before he put pen to paper on his new contract last summer, when he chose to stay, not to go to Arsenal, because Arsenal went for him and he decided to continue his development with RB Leipzig and then beyond what was signed in on paper, they had a gentleman's agreement in that kind of chat. So well, the difference is that for Benjamin Sesko, he has a very healthy relationship with RB Leipzig. So, but that's the challenge with gentleman's arguments, is that usually club officials can go back on their word, and when a player is really under contract, there's not much the player can do about it. However, we've gotten some reports suggesting that maybe the player may look to go on strike should the club fail to move him on and go on strike and not play for them, and things of that nature. Whether those allegations also hold any water to them, we'll find out soon or later. Then you say, is it a here we go for Florian Wirtz to join Liverpool? Is it confirmed he is joining Liverpool? Yes, Florian Wirtz is at that stage of a here we go. Apparently, the player is on holiday at the moment, but the expectation is that the deal could be wrapped up next week. That's when his medical is scheduled to take place. So that's according to Florian Plettenberg with Sky Germany. He says that the medical is scheduled for next week. But as far as things are concerned, all the negotiations are as good as done. So we are waiting for him to go do his medical and complete the move. And then Bayer Leverkusen, of course, have come into Liverpool wanting to sign Jarell Quasha as their preferred choice for a centre back. Sorry, I have a mosquito here swinging around me. Anyways, so that's that. But I hope I have answered your question regarding to Victor Gyökeres quite well. And then regarding Florian Wirtz, yes, so Florian Wirtz will become a Liverpool player very soon or later. And then they are also looking to wrap up the deal for Milos Kerkez. Liverpool are looking forward to moving on certain players if the right offers come for them. And one of them is, of course, Darwin Núñez. The other is Diego Jota. They are willing to listen for offers. Federico Chiesa has expressed desire to leave the club, not because he doesn't want to stay at Liverpool, but because he wants to be guaranteed a little more consistent playing time, because he wants to get back into the squad for the Italian national team in preparation for the World Cup. And again, like I spoke about widely on this channel, is that next season is going to be a bit feisty for most players. They're going to really put in the shift. Why? Because they want to impress their national team managers that they are worthy of being summoned to the national team squad for the FIFA World Cup that will be played in 2026 across 3 countries, that is Canada, USA, and Mexico. Then, in the absence of Safa Ali, I would still want to answer his question about the FIFA Club World Cup, on who I will be supporting. Essentially, I'll be supporting Real Madrid because that's my other a team that I do support. But away from Real Madrid, here is the FIFA Club World Cup is an expanded version of from what we had used to know of the competition to be. 32 teams will be participating this summer. The games will be played across 11 different cities in the United States of America. Apparently, the turn up for the event, or the looking forward to the event itself, the tournament itself, is sort of too low, that FIFA have been forced to further slice their ticket sales, because they had only made sales of up to around 25,000 tickets for the opening game. And that opening game will come between Inter Miami and Al Ahly. Yes, between Inter Miami and Al Ahly at around 3 p.m. That's East African time. I hope I'm correct on that. That will be on Sunday, 15th June, which is this Sunday. So that will be the opening fixture, and then the other fixtures on the same day will be between Bayern Munich and Auckland City, while Paris Saint-Germain will be up against Atletico Madrid. I think that's a game to really look forward to. That game will kick off at about 10 p.m., while the Bayern Munich game will come at around 7 p.m. So we'll do our best to follow at least PSG versus Atletico Madrid. Should be a fixture entertaining enough for all of us to follow up on. But anyways, here is the look at the group stages. In Group A, There's Al Ahly, that's from Egypt. There's Inter Miami from the Major League Soccer. There's Palmeiras. There's FC Porto. There, Porto from Portugal, and Palmeiras are from Brazil. Then Group B has Atletico Madrid. It has Botafogo. It has PSG and Seattle Sounders. Group C has Auckland City, Bayern Munich, Benfica, and Boca Juniors. While Group D has Chelsea, ES Tunis, that's from Africa, and then it has Flamingo, and it has another club called Lyon. And then Group E has Inter Milan, it has Monterrey, it has River Plate, that's where Franco Mastantuano has been playing or is playing his football, because I think the agreement is that he will join Real Madrid after the FIFA Club World Cup. Yeah. So, and then there's Uara Ritz, that's for Group E. Then Group F has Borussia Dortmund, it has Fluminense, it has Mamelodi Sundowns, it has Uslan. And then Group G has Al Ain, Juventus, Manchester City, and Wydad AC or Wydad Casablanca, as many of you know it. Then Al Hilal are in Group H alongside Real Madrid, alongside Pachuca, as well as RB Salzburg. So those are the different group stages for the FIFA Club World Cup, or the different groups. Safa Ali asks, Prince Nkosi says, Anton Semenyo to Tottenham Hotspurs, are rumors true? Yes, those rumors are true. They've been there, but also there are rumors of Brian Mbeumo. But I think it could be a choice of either of the two, or in regards to who they can afford, one. Two, who does the new manager in Thomas Frank loves most? We've spoken about Thomas Frank joining officially. He's officially been announced as the new manager for Tottenham Hotspurs, replacing Ange Postecoglou. Meanwhile, the mayor of I think the city of Sydney in Australia had implored Tottenham Hotspurs to reverse their decision to sack Ange Postecoglou. He wrote a message for them, I think on Instagram, requesting them to sort of go back on their word. Not to go back on their word, but to reconsider the decision of sacking Ange Postecoglou and we take him back. But look, that won't happen really. It won't happen. So Thomas Frank is the new manager. Of course, he does go with his assistant. I'm forgetting what's his name. His assistant, the assistant coach that he's been with. I think is it Cohen? Yes, he's just yes, he's called Justin Corrin. Yes, Justin Corrin is his assistant. So they will be, they're going together at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium there, where he is being announced as the replacement for Ange Postecoglou. So we are waiting to hear whether Tottenham's transfer priorities shift. We do know that their defender, Christian Romero, is being tracked by Atletico Madrid. They want to sign him. Atletico Madrid also want to sign Johnny Cardoso from Real Betis. Those negotiations are ongoing. Real Betis do value Johnny Cardoso at around 40 million euros. They are yet to agree on the final fee. And then Atletico Madrid are also interested in signing Spanish left winger / attacking midfielder Alex Baena from Villarreal. Is a player that we've spoken about before on this channel. So that's regarding Atletico de Madrid. But Semenyo to Spurs, yes, there's interest, although I think his valuation is quite high, but that is based on media reports that Bournemouth do value him for at around £70 million, which is quite significantly high for a player who just joined. He just joined Bournemouth in, I think, in January 2023 for Bristol City for about 13 or 11, for about 11 to 13 million pounds, really there. So, I mean, I do find that fee a bit high, really, for a player of his caliber. Because last season his numbers weren't bad: 11 goals and 5 assists. That's a 16 goal involvement in 37 appearances. And the season before that, he did manage 33 games, scored 8 goals, and provided 2 assists. So, really, I think it was 2022 when he joined them from Bristol City, maybe not 2023. So But around that time, no, actually, it was, yes, January 2023. That's when he joins them for Bristol City. But again, he's a very good player, but is he worth 70 million pounds? I'm not really convinced to think so. I'm not really convinced to think so. Not really, not at all. Not at all. He's a Ghanaian international, only 25 years of age, similar age profile with Brian Mbomo, but we all know Brian Mbomo did post better numbers, 20 goals and 7 assists last season. And then United are interested, Newcastle are interested, as well as Arsenal and Chelsea, but we've spoken about the player's preference to join Manchester United, but Thomas Frank joining Tottenham Hotspurs could tilt the debate in maybe it could shift the debate from what we've been hearing. You never know. Thomas Frank could persuade him to join him at Tottenham Hotspurs as opposed to going to Manchester United. I mean, anyways, both sides were horrible last season in the Premier League, and then Tottenham managed to overcome Man United in the finals of the Europa League. And maybe the discussion there becomes easier. But of course, historically, Manchester United does preponderate Tottenham's weight in regards to, history and everything that you may want to think of in that strength. Then Manchester City director of scouting, and recruitment, James Smith, is set to leave the club and is expected to join Everton. That's according to the Athletic by David Austin of the Athletic. So for Everton, I do not know how their summer is going to look like, but I do know that David Moyes is looking to make a number of changes. That will depend on a few departures. They had expressed interest in signing Liam Delap. We all know they lost out on that just as much as Manchester United. They all lost out to Chelsea. They've expressed interest in signing Jack Grealish for Manchester City. We'll wait and see whether that will happen. Then there is another Liverpool winger, a youngster that they've expressed interest in signing, although it seems like he's being overpriced. Liverpool want up to 30 million pounds, but I think maybe it's because it's their arch nemesis, Everton, who want to do business with them over the youngster. And then maybe the other business they do, of course, James Tarkowski suffered a very long-term injury at the tail end of last season. I think it was feared to be an ACL. And then, but in terms of their defensive options, they could depend on the departures of Gerard Braithwaite, who is attracted interest from the likes of Chelsea as well as Newcastle. Similar to, they also hold interest in Mark Bailey from Crystal Palace. Arsenal have also been now mentioned in the conversation in regards to interest for Mark Bailey at Crystal Palace. 24 years of age, is the captain there. There's interest from Tottenham Hotspurs as well as Chelsea. So maybe player movement could determine how they go on to behave or to do business in the transfer window in the respect of Everton. And then Crystal Palace are in the process of sort of sorting out their, UEFA rules breaches or conundrum when it comes to John. Please let me know if it's back on. Apologies on that. I think my microphone went out of battery. Yes, the other microphone went out of battery. So let me know if you can hear me once again. It was, yes, okay, we are back on. Thank you so much for alerting me to that. Prince Nkosi. Yes, speaking about the situation regarding Crystal Palace and Olympic Lyon. Now, because the American investor John Textor does own shares in Olympic Lyon to the tune of 88%. That's according to the Athletic, but also owns 30% stake in Crystal Palace. That means it's this two clubs have the same owner in essence. Now, like I was saying, some sources had reported that he owns up to 43% shares in Crystal Palace, although Crystal Palace seem to argue to the contrary. Well, they know better. But they have also informed UEFA that while he is a shareholder, he has no business, or he does not take part in the day-to-day running of the club, which is true. It's been reported that Crystal Palace, I think, have one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive, season tickets. And there was some speculation that it is because of John Textor who made it that expensive. But he is not part really of the people that run the club on a day-to-day basis, because Nottingham Forest had petitioned UEFA in regards to Crystal Palace being in breach of the UEFA rules, because what UEFA says is that if there are two clubs under the same ownership or ownership group, and that's where the legalities are, is that they are not allowed to participate in the same competition, in the same UEFA competition. If they are to participate in the same UEFA competition, the owners or the owner must have relinquished control of one of the clubs for that to happen. And that's why Evangelos Marinakis, who owns Olympiacos from Greece, but also owns Nottingham Forest in the UK, moved to put Nottingham Forest into a trust. So that trust would then go on to control and manage the day-to-day running of the club, so that then Marinakis excuses himself from being involved in the running of Nottingham Forest, and to avoid the conflict of interest. So Nottingham Forest wrote to UEFA that Crystal Palace were in breach of those rules, and Crystal Palace have been arguing the case that yes, he is a shareholder, but he is not involved in the day-to-day running of the club, and they've been looking to have him sell his shares, by the way, which is a process that is ongoing. There's a certain sporting group that involves an NBA player that are interested, that are apparently are willing to pay up to 200 million euros to acquire, $200 million to acquire his shares in the club. So let's wait and see how that situation develops, because it is critical in regards whatever decision UEFA makes. And then we're talking about Lyon, who themselves were on the verge of being expelled out of the Europa League last season, and they are under close supervision or monitoring by the UEFA club financial control, club. Sorry, yes, that body of UEFA that looks at clubs' finances in regards to the financial fair play rules. They believed they were in breach of those rules, so they were under threat of being, expunged or banned from the competition. But then they reached an agreement and allowed Lyon to move on. That's how they were able to play the quarterfinals against Manchester United last season in the UEFA Europa League. So that is the development around that story when it comes to Crystal Palace and their management issues and their case before UEFA for being allowed to participate in the European Cup, in the Europa League, because by the virtue of fact that they won the FA Cup is what qualifies them to participate in the competition. So that's why that conundrum has been there. But Crystal Palace are really, really trying hard to sort it out so that they can be allowed to play in the tournament. I mean, it would be a really, really huge blow for them to qualify in the manner in which they qualified, and then they'd be thrown out on a technicality, which is not impacting them directly. So that's it. That's it on that front, really. But that's the situation regarding to Nottingham Forest. Anyways, guys, it's 1 hour. It's been 1 hour. It's been 1.5 hours into today's broadcast. I think we've pretty much said it all. I know we can never exhaust this, really. But anyways, this is regarding Darwin Núñez, and it's just coming in from Fabrizio Romano, who says Darwin Núñez remains guaranteed exit at Liverpool this summer, with Saudi Pro League clubs keen since January. Understand also Napoli have made contact in the recent days with Núñez on the shortlist, and more talks to follow soon. Darwin open to both Saudi and European options. There you have it. The 25-year-old Uruguayan striker is open to a move to the Saudi Pro League as well as remaining in Europe, where Napoli are interested. So Napoli are interested in signing Darwin Núñez. The talks between Napoli and Napoli, who just concluded by the signing of Kevin De Bruyne, the talks of Napoli signing Jonathan David seem to have cooled down in recent days. But if there does fall any update, we'll be sure to let you know on that development as well. And then maybe how do we even part ways without me letting you know that 20 Alexander-Arnold was unveiled today at Real Madrid. But before I tell you that, if you're interested in learning digital skills like coding, web design, as well as learning cybersecurity, then our friends at Able State do offer trainings there. I'll leave their link down in the description of this video so that you can check them out later. But they do offer in-person and online training sessions for those that are interested. They do offer in-person and online training sessions as well as career guidance, and then they do help their trainees find jobs in the digital dynamic world. But yeah, Alexander Trent Arnold was unveiled today at the Santiago Bernabeu. He will be donning the shirt number 12. That's what he will be wearing, previously worn by Marcelo, for those of you that do remember. And he spoke very, very good Spanish, which really sort of confirmed this rumor or the idea, or backed up his message that it had been a long life dream for him to play for Real Madrid. So he was unveiled today, and he spoke majority of it Spanish, which I do not know. His Spanish was quite good. As much as I support Real Madrid, every time they are unveiling players, and I get to listen into Florentino Perez and the players that they do unveil, I'm quickly turned off because of my lack of knowledge for Spanish. But it is what it is. He was unveiled, and he will be part of Real Madrid squad for the FIFA Club World Cup. Then yesterday they did unveil Dean Howson. They do expect that to complete that deal for Franco Mastratuano very soon also, and then have the player out there. Only 17 years of age, by the way. Then Renato Viega sends message to Juventus fans. It was an absolute pleasure and honor to represent this huge club. Thanks a lot. Fino Ala there. Viega has returned to Chelsea, but was left out of the FIFA Club World Cup squad. For those of you that did watch that UEFA Nations League final, it did feature they are coming on in the second half, Renato Viega, and looked quite impressively well in that game. But anyways, guys, I think that's the gist of the conversation. Really, I think we've exhausted most of the things that we wanted to discuss. Then we will start from there, perhaps tomorrow morning for tomorrow morning's broadcast. But Liverpool have are considering a move for Victor Osimhen. That's according to Gimme Sport. They are considering a move for Victor Osimhen. That's according to Gimme Sport. In some of the latest news, we've spoken about, we've spoken about Arsenal's interest in Nico Williams quite extensively. Man United's interest in Hugo Ekitike, among other things. So let's discuss the rest of it in the morning. But before again I let you go, AC Milan are interested in signing Alexander Zinchenko from Arsenal. However, the two parties are yet to agree on the wages, because apparently he's been on high wages at Arsenal, which AC Milan seem to argue they may not be in position to afford. So, and that's why Arsenal have gone back into the conversation for Jarell Hato, because they want him as a replacement for Alexander Zinchenko. We'll get to discuss all that in the morning, a brief for Friday morning sport. So it's been a pleasure having you guys for tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much, Prince Nkosi, for engaging with us, for all your questions and submissions on different topics and expanding our topics of discussion. Thank you so much, Safa Ali. Thank you so much, Maya Momoto. Thank you so much, Adidas Tahirovic from Rotterdam in Netherlands. Thank you so much, Odin, and the rest of you that were in the ventilators, the Kamoni, like we prefer to call it, and those that were watching but did not engage with us in the conversation. It's been a pleasure having you guys. Have yourselves a wonderful night. Let's do this again tomorrow morning for Friday morning sport, and then of course later on in the evening, if God permits us, if it grants us the health to be here, we will be here tomorrow. Have yourselves a blessed night. Bye-bye.